오늘 진행 방식부터 설명을 드릴게요. 저희가 이제 파이썬 다큐멘터리를 틀 거예요. 틀고 저희 화면을 좀 바꿔서 저희가 저희도 시청하는 그런 그 자세로 같이 보면서 다큐멘터리 관련된 뭐 이야기나 아니면 궁금증 같은 것들 서로 이야기를 나누려고 하고, 혹시 보시면서 이제 궁금한 점들은 채팅에 남겨주시면 저희가 또 같이 이야기를 나눠보겠습니다. 그리고 시간이 조금 긴 편이에요. 다큐멘터리가 1시간 25분 정도 되기 때문에 1.25배속으로 저희가 보면서, 그 대신 이제 한글 자막이 나오니까 영상을 이해하시기에는 큰 무리가 없지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 그러면 한번 틀어볼게요.
Did you think Python was going to get popular from the beginning, or?
Ready?
Python has contributed to making critical thinking a little more approachable by more people.
You could spend 1 to 2 hours learning programming fundamentals, and then you can write like 10 to 20 lines of code that do something interesting.
The language, the community, the ecosystem, the market, the whole thing has had such an impact on humanity.
Today, I think it's safe to say that almost anywhere there's a computer, there's probably some Python.
It's literally on Mars.
The impact of AI, I think we're still seeing what that's going to be. Python is incredibly important for that.
To fully understand how Python got so big, we have to go back in time. Maybe not that far back. Everything started back in Amsterdam in the 80s during my time at CWI, the Dutch research facility.
The CWI had been behind a lot of major programming language developments, Algol 60 and Algol 68, for instance. And Lambert Meertens had tried teaching programming to artists and discovered things about programming that are easy if you're a scientist or a geek, but for somebody like an artist, those things weren't obvious because you had to know something about the computer.
The cause of this frustration was the low level of the languages that were available.
The computers were immensely expensive, and compared with that, a programmer was really, really cheap. And so programming languages were designed with that economic relationship in mind. It didn't matter if it took a long time to program, as long as it didn't demand too much of the computer, because that's where the cost was.
We looked at each other and said, can't we do a better job? Can't we design a language that is easy to learn, easy to teach, but also easy to use?
So that beginners could understand how to program without having to go into all those messy hardware details.
And that's how the ABC project was born. One of the members of that team was Guido van Rossum.
I was hired to work on ABC, for which there was a small prototype, but every part of the prototype had to be expanded to fully working according to the spec.
In 1985, we made a release of ABC. And then we hit a problem, how to make the world know that there was ABC.
We did not have a good way of reaching our intended audience. The internet did not exist. Most people had never heard of a computer or even seen one.
If anybody wanted a copy, they had to send us a letter, and we'd send them a floppy disk.
So I'm afraid ABC reached very few people, and at some point the directors, for a reason that I still don't understand, killed their project.
I had spent, 3.5 years of hard work on this language and implementation to make it as good as we could. So it was disappointing.
Guido was transferred to another project on a distributed operating system, the Amoeba system.
One of my jobs at that project as a programmer, not a researcher, was to write or help write a large number of user applications. And I didn't actually think that for many of those utilities, C was a very good language. And I thought, if we just could program ABC instead of...
화이트북.
네. 방금 지나간 책. 네.
그 커닝햄이랑
리차드랑 데니스 리치랑
데니스 리치랑 같이 쓴 시책이죠. 유명한 책.
네. 딱 지나가자마자 알겠어요.
그런 C보다 자기들이 ABC가 더 좋겠다. 초보자들이 배우고 익히고 사용하기에 그런 얘기를 하는 거죠.
그렇죠.
근데 원래 ABC라는 언어를 아셨어요?
저는 이걸로 알고 있었죠. 파이썬 만들기 전에 이제 이런
그걸로는 알고 있어요.
네, 그렇게만 알고 있었죠.
여기 다큐에서 처음 봐가지고 아예.
문법도 방금 처음 봤어요.
저도 영상으로 처음 알게 됐습니다.
지금도 살아 있나요?
글쎄요, 모르겠네요.
네, 계속 보겠습니다.
ABC, each of those utilities would be like half a page of code, and I could write the entire suite of utilities in a couple of weeks, instead of the years that it looked like it was going to take us.
Except that ABC was so high and abstract, it wasn't a good language to talk to servers and file systems and processes, and it's sort of the whole operating system thing was abstracted away from ABC.
So I thought, well, there really ought to be a language that sort of bridges the gap between C and Shell. And we looked at Perl, and we didn't think it was any good as a programming language. It was about as bad as BASIC, although in different ways. So Python was also, in a part, built as an alternative to Perl. That's where I decided, oh well, I'm going to see if I can make my own programming language.
One Christmas holiday, I believe, he decided to spend his time designing and building a new programming language for the operating system based on the principles that he'd learned while on the ABC project.
It was logical that I would start with ABC as an example. The most prominent feature that Python borrowed from ABC is actually the use of indentation for statement grouping. But it was also logical that I sort of dropped the things from ABC that I didn't particularly like. That's how we ended up with Python.
예, 그 오늘 오지 못하셨는데 나동이님이 이야기해주신 게 파이썬이 보통 이제 크리스마스 때 만들어서 바로 런칭했다고 알려져 있지만 사실 그렇지는 않다.
릴리즈를 크리스마스
때 한 거일 뿐이지 그 전부터 작업을 했다.
그게 루머였네요. 저도 그렇게 알고 있었는데.
그런 루머였죠. 과장이 많았죠.
귀도가 크리스마스 때 너무 심심해가지고 혼자서
뭐
언어를 만들어서
여자친구랑 헤어지고 나서 뭐 그런 얘기도 있었어요.
그렇죠. 뭐 그래서 그때 여자친구가 있었으면 파이썬이 못 나왔을 것이다. 뭐 이런 얘기도 하고 그랬는데 사실과 좀 많이 다른데
역시 이렇게 구전되면서 양념이 이렇게 좀
네. 그렇군요.
근데 신발 벗고 있는 게 저는 눈에 들어오네요.
집 아니에요? 아 집인데도 외국 사람이니까.
그러네요.
저 부분은 지금 처음 봅니다. 저도.
I finally was confident enough of the interpreter, was complete enough that I showed it to Lambert.
He showed me a language he had developed stealthily, which he calls Python, named after Monty Python.
I said, look what I made.
It was clear to me that it had some resemblance to ABC.
The command line prompt is even the same. So Lambert watched me type a few things, and
Guido was excited about it, and he apparently thought I would be excited as well.
At some point he had seen enough, and he said, can I try something? And he types one very short line of code, and it crashes the interpreter. And he knew that it would.
The point escaped me. I didn't know why he thought this was better than ABC, and why he had done this whole project.
I went back, and the next day I had a fix for it. But it was a pretty crushing experience, to be honest.
원래 남의 프로젝트는 그렇게 매력적으로 보이지 않아요. 대단하지 않아.
그렇죠.
그런 것 같은데 왜?
It must have been at least half a year later that I first got acquainted with Python. So this is the office where Guido and I were holed up when he created Python.
There were two important users. Sjoerd was one of them, and the other was Jack Janssen.
Guido was sitting over there, and I was sitting over there. If you want to prototype a program, you sort of write the outlines of the program, but it doesn't actually work. When you do this in Python, it actually works. It's readable, it's very easy to program, and indentation is totally natural, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Sjoerd and Jack were the most active in using Python.
You find bugs, you find things that you want to extend.
And then telling me about it, because all they had to do was say, hey, Guido.
It was the first real interactive systems programming language, so you could just sit and write and run it immediately without any compilation. So it was much more fun to use than the old programming languages, but slower.
프린트가 함수가 아니었죠.
I think it was mostly Jack's idea in the end. Well, we all worked on it to make an open source release.
CWI allowed Guido to distribute Python to the world as long as this copyright notice was there.
They would have held back if they had known it would be such an incredible success. Which is good that they didn't know. Nobody knew. I didn't either. Because if they had held back, it would never have become an incredible success. Then we had to actually physically do the release, which turned out to be an incredible pain because Usenet was the only thing we had to release it.
유즈넷 뭔지 아시나요?
아니요, 처음 들어봤어요. 이거
이런
보면서
거 질문해 주시길 바라는 마음으로 제가 이 자리에 추천한 거예요.
네, 알겠습니다.
근데 이거 번역하면서 아마 공부를 많이 하셨을 거라서.
하셨을 것 같긴 해요.
네. 그래서 처음에 마음으로
네,
네.
네. 최대한
유즈넷이 뭔가요, 스카이님?
유즈넷 그 뉴스그룹
네, 뉴스그룹은
뭐죠?
뭔가요?
게시판 같은
게시판.
인터넷 게시판 같은 그냥 게시판들만
네.
토픽별로 쭉 있는 거죠.
그럼 유즈넷으로 배포한다는 건 게시판에다가
그 아마
파일을 올리는 거예요?
아마 바이너리 파일은 안 됐죠. 아마 텍스트로 다
안 됐죠.
바꾸잖아요. 예, 그 인코딩 해가지고 아스키로 다 바꿔가지고 아마 올렸을 거고 저거 막 스레드 막 여러 개 해서 올렸을 걸요. 용량이 크니까.
제가 최근에 역사 공부를 좀 해가지고 유즈넷도 좀 봤는데 이제 지금 이제 헷갈릴 수 있는 게 일단 인터넷이 없는 시대고
그 유즈넷이 인터넷이죠.
그
웹이,
인터넷
웹이
지금
없죠.
웹이 없는 시대
웹이
그렇죠. 웹이 없는 시대고 이제 그냥 네트워크가 이제 전화선처럼만 연결되어 있는 시대이기 때문에 지금처럼 이제 게시판이긴 하지만 지금 같은 게시판이 아니고 그냥 어떤 메일 주소 같은 거에다가 내가 올리면 서버 운영하는 사람들이 전 세계 곳곳에 있고 퍼지고 그러니까 완전 분산형으로 막 이렇게 하고 나도 리더기 있으면 누가 글 올리면 여기 오고 뭐 이런 중앙 서버가 있어서 내가 거기다 쓰고 이런다기보다 분산으로 움직이면서 그런 구조가 된 것 같은데 시대가 나중에 웹이 되면서 이제 그 형태 그대로 나중에는 지금 우리가 보는 게시판 형태가 비슷하게 됐죠.
그래서 그 주소만 봐도 토픽을 알 수 있어요. 그래서 뭐 이 프로그래밍 언어 같으면은 뭐 conf.lang. 뭐 c 뭐 이렇게 짓거든요. 한글 뉴스그룹은 han.conf.lang.c 그래서 줄여서 뭐 HCLC 뭐 이렇게 부르기도 하고 아마 그런 데다가 이제 올리지 않았을까.
그렇죠. 근데 그때 아마 저 당시에 1990년이면 좀 헷갈리긴 하는데 아마 파일 같은 것도 안 되고
안 됐을
다
거예요.
텍스트 아스키만
맞아요.
올라가야 돼서
그래서 그거 받아서 다시 이제 바이너리를 변환해 가지고
그렇죠. 그렇게 쓰고 하는 게 네.
스카이님 막 목소리 좀 작대요.
그렇습니까?
Usenet was a network of, you could say, bulletin boards. People would write messages, they would get distributed over the world, and then there were the groups for all the different computer languages.
그러니까 저렇게
Usenet had a very strict limit on the size of a single post. First, put your entire source tree in a tarball. Then compress it. Then you have to do another step where you turn the binary data into ASCII encoding. So you have this huge file with gobbledygook, but it's at least printable gobbledygook. And then you apply another tool that snips it into pieces. Then there's a script where if you have downloaded all 21 parts, you can undo all those operations in reverse. And that was what people put up with. So we did all the work on our side, and plenty of people did all the work on their side to unpack this, because I had apparently written a very good teaser about what this was.
리눅스도 아마
Very quickly, I started getting feedback via email or Usenet from people who had done something exciting with it, or who had found a bug, and that just kept
있는지
coming.
모르겠는데 결국은 그걸 다 이어받은 게 현재
We worked at
구글
Johnson Space Center,
그룹스라고.
so our interest was putting together
뒤지면 나오는 것들이
flight
있더라고요.
simulations and tools
모든 게
for
다
the
있는지
design
모르겠는데.
engineers that would be used for a shuttle program at the time.
저도 80년대 올린 거 이런 거 몇 개 찾으니까
I remember needing a scripting language to control a C++ library project we were
여기 파이콘
working
행사가
on at the time.
여기가요?
맞네. 뒤에 저기 로고가 현상에 있는 거 파이콘 저 피츠버그.
네.
그 뭔가 파이썬 행사할 때 만나서 인터뷰
그런 것 같아요. 여기가 그 오픈 스페이스 OST 하는 곳이거든요.
Not too long into that search, I found Guido's Python distribution at CWI. I was able to FTP that down, unpack it,
어떻게 다
compile it,
들었을까요? 너무 신기해.
and run it in a matter of 10 minutes or so. That was my first impressive experience with Python.
20 years ago, a computer that cost $1 million and filled an entire room had less capability than an 11-pound desktop computer today. With cost going down and capability going up, the computer has entered our lives quickly and unobtrusively.
There were lots of things changing in a major way that made computing particularly exciting to be in at that time. Computers suddenly were coming out of the machine room and landing up on your desk, and then of course the web happened, then it all exploded.
After the internet came to Europe, it was much easier for software to be distributed.
Python very slowly took off. Then there was a growing Python community which was very supportive, like a big family, you could almost say.
Part of the benefit of this is that
좋아하는 장면 중 하나입니다.
I'm like, there's no strain on my body at all. I was working on developing a kind of distributed equipment database. And a colleague at the lab, Michael Clay, knew that I was looking for what was called a scripting language that was also sophisticated, that would enable you to build substantial things and not get bogged down in the ragged edges.
Scripting languages were designed to glue things together, to connect things that already worked, that already existed.
Immediately on trying it, I was just amazed and thought this can't be as good as it is. And it was. Mike was interested in bringing Guido over, and Guido was interested in coming over.
99% of the people that I got in touch with were in the United States.
So Guido ended up coming. And then Mike and Guido and I wanted to arrange a workshop so people who were interested in Python could gather and talk about what they were working on and what they felt was needed.
This is the t-shirt for the first conference, and so this... that was just sort of flowy writing, and on the back it gave the date of the conference. Spam, 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 spam. It's such a fantastic song.
That workshop really is, for me, the beginning of the Python community, November 1994, Gaithersburg, Maryland, in this windowless government office building at NIST.
That was a great experience. It was about 2 days. We had 20 people. I still have the t-shirt from that workshop.
There was just kind of this feel of, hey, there's something happening. This will be fun to hang out with the people that I chat with online.
To actually see Guido in person and actually make decisions. And we knew that if you impressed him with the feature and it was an easy thing to install, he would add it to the language right there so that we can at least try it out in beta form.
There was like a whole room of people who knew what you were talking about because they had all studied Python deeply, or almost all.
One of the people was Barry Warsaw.
잠깐만. 두 분은 여기 나온 사람들 다 누군지 대충 아시는 거예요?
저는
다른 인물이 엄청 많이 나오는데.
네, 다는 모르고 아는 사람도 좀 있고. 네. 그렇습니다.
네. 저는 귀도만 알고 다른 분들은 다 이제 처음 보는
꽤 많은 사람이 하고 지금 역사적 인물들 같은데 다 한 줄로 싹싹싹 너무 지나가서 뭔가 아시는 분이면 좀 설명을 해주셔도 좋을 것 같아서.
네.
Around 1994, I joined a company, CNRI, Corporation for National Research Initiatives, and we were building these software agents, little programs that can move around to different computers on a network, and they pickle themselves up and move around to another place and reconstitute themselves and do some more work. A friend of mine from NIST sent me an email and said, hey, we've got this guy coming over from the Netherlands, and he's going to talk about his language. Do you want to come? And so we went to the workshop and just absolutely fell in love with, of course, Python, and of course Guido.
Even then, it had the feeling that there was a there, that there was something that was going to happen, that there was potential.
I remember coming back to CNRI and saying, oh, this is great. We're going to use Python for sure in our project. And one of our colleagues at CNRI said, well, what do you think? Why don't we just hire Guido?
지금은 그냥 넘어가는데 저런 기술을 결정할 수 있을까요? 나온 지 얼마 안 된 언어를
CNRI was set up to sort of promote information infrastructure and foster research, help build pilot projects, take the results and put them out into the public so that others could then leverage it.
Part of CNRI's mission was to cultivate internet-based things.
That's why our name, Corporation for National Research Initiatives, has the word initiatives in there. We had a need for a language that would be easier for people to deal with than any other traditional languages that were around at the time.
I ran across a photograph. There was a party at CNRI years ago. It was probably, I think, 1996. And it's Guido Ranassim.
Yeah, I used to say Guido. Many people say Guido, but I said Guido, and I'm sure I don't pronounce it right. Oh, he was a very stylish person, and he was a very strong fellow.
I got introduced to him, and it just seemed like it was a good fit, and so I made the job offer.
For me, it was fantastic. There's no doubt about that.
One of the things he insists on, if you want to get him to work for you, is that he has some fraction of his time, preferably as much as half time, if not more, to work on the language itself.
The fact that they could work full-time on Python, because it turned out that the Nobots project was almost more an excuse to hire me than I did much for that.
I kind of feel like our work on Python was a little subversive. You know, we tended to spend a lot more time on Python than maybe we should have.
I went to CNRI, and since I had been a systems person, I was responsible for setting up python.org.
We should have also grabbed python.com, even though we didn't think of Python as a commercial enterprise, because someone else got it and used it to host a stupid porn site. For years, we had to warn people, go to python.org, not .com.
It really was the perfect home, I think, for doing all of that early Python development and develop a lot of the infrastructure around Python.
We had a meeting
discussing doing all of that.
저희 제일 앞에 줄에 있는 분.
빈트서프인가요?
아니요. 저분이 제가 갑자기 이름 생각 안 나는데 저분도 파이콘 클리브랜드였나? 그때 의장하셨던 분이에요. 딱 제일 앞에 계셔가지고 네. 넘어가셔도 됩니다.
Early Python development and develop a lot of the infrastructure around Python.
We had a meeting discussing making some kind of user group or software organization where the Python software activity was proposed.
We need a little bit of governance, a little bit of organization, but we don't want too much because I don't think.
저 때부터 이미 PSF 같은 게 존재했던 건가요? 그러면?
아니요, PSF는 아니고 PSF는 더 나중이고 저거는
그 전신 같은 거 아니에요?
네네, 일종의 약간 그쵸, 그 전신 같은 거라고 이해하면 될 것 같아요.
아까 액티비티라고 돼 있던.
네네,
네.
맞아요. 네.
I think any of us really liked bureaucracy.
And then the question came up about what we should call Guido as part of that. I think it was me who suggested that Guido be called the benevolent dictator. And then Barry suggested benevolent dictator for life. And that became an internet meme or actually a software
처음 알았어요.
meme.
리눅스에서 된 게 아니고요?
저도 리눅스인 줄 알았는데 근데 사실 보면 리눅스가 늦게 나오긴 했잖아요. 파이썬보다.
그런가요?
아닌가?
모르겠는데.
저는 처음 듣는데 저도 이걸 보면서 이제 그러니까 저 단어가 있다는 건 알았는데 이제 이걸 통해서 찾아보니까 이때 처음 나왔고 이걸로 인해서 이 단어가 되게 유명해졌다고.
BDFL이 저는 리눅스 토발즈에서
맞아요.
시작됐다고 저는 생각하고 있었던 것 같아요. 약간 대표적인 BDFL이 리눅스 토발즈라서 근데 이건 또 처음 알았네요.
그러네요.
Update data for life. You can find it on Wikipedia.
Ultimately, Guido was the inventor of the language and the final decider about, yes, this is going to make it in or this is not going to make it in.
I think I developed my own style during those first years. All ideas are welcome, but I will choose which ideas I believe are right to add to the language.
There's dozens and dozens of aspects of Python today where somebody had a vision for, if you just add this to Python, look at all these amazing things that I can do.
I'm one of the many people that came to Python not as a programmer but as a scientist. Python wasn't the first language I used for science. I was doing satellite data.
넌포커스가 뭔데요?
넌포커스라고 뭘 어떻게 해야 되지? 그 과학계산용 그런 라이브러리 비영리 재단 같은 데고 저분이 그것도 아나콘다도 같이 창업하셨을 거예요. 네.
Data processing, and I used Perl to do it. And then a year later, I would come back and try to figure out what I'd done, and I had no idea. Python had the opposite experience. I first started using Python in 1997. I just used it to do some scripting, do some data processing with some medical imaging data. And I was like, hey, this is nice, this is pretty cool. A year later, so 1998, I came back to look at the code I'd written, and I could read it. I understood what I did. And that was kind of, for me, the convincing data that said, oh, I need to dig in on this language. And there were a few really key people at that time who were publishing or talking about how to use Python for science. Not very many, but a few. Conrad Hinson was one of them, I remember, and David Asher and Jim Huguenin.
There's been a number of stages in the life cycle of Python when it just grew from a core language capability to a platform with a number of different specialty modules and packages that made it very, very useful for certain user communities. The first one was probably the Numera community, the science and engineering folks that wanted high-performance matrix operations to be done.
Even though Guido wasn't a scientist himself, wasn't necessarily deeply concerned with the same things that we were concerned with as scientists, he was open to the suggestions.
I think one of the things that people don't appreciate about
가본 곳인가요?
네네.
어디예요?
피츠버그.
몇 년? 피츠버그 옛날에 가지 최근에?
작년 재작년까지. 아니다 올해까지죠. 올해
네,
작년.
네.
올해랑 작년.
아 항상 같은 곳에서 하나 보군요.
아니요 2년마다. 네.
다큐를 꽤 오랫동안 준비하나 보네요. 저런 영상들을.
네, 이게 보니까 막 옛날 영상들도 다 찾아서 조금씩 넣는 거 보면 좀 오랫동안 준비한 것 같습니다.
그러니까 받는 거 그런데 이런 거는 왠지 그래도 전문가가 가서 옆에서 촬영한 것 같은.
미리 찍은 것 같아요. 네.
그 채팅창에 아스부밤님이 승우님이 남겨주셨는데 파이썬 0.9.0이 91년 2월 20날 릴리즈 됐고요. 근데 리눅스의 최초 릴리즈가 91년 9월 17일이래요.
그러니까 파이썬이 빠르죠.
네, 파이썬이 빨라서 BDFL도 아마 빠른 것 같습니다.
about the Python language as much now that it's so popular and mainstream is how important it was that Guido was open to new ideas and open to the needs of people who are not traditional programmers.
I think he had a very clear-eyed, quiet focus on understanding some things about the future
젊었을 때 인상이 되게
that he
다르네요.
built into the language. It was
말안
uniquely suited
해주면
to
좀
its
못 알아볼 것
environment.
같은.
One of the reasons I use Python, I think a lot of people use Python at the time.
아르미 로나처.
파이콘 코리아 2016년 키노트 스피커 중에 한 분이죠.
그렇죠.
네.
그렇죠. 현재는 거의 AI에 푹 빠져 계시더라고요.
푹 빠져서 러스트를 열심히.
그렇죠.
네.
That in the early 2000s, the world was almost divided into here's an open source ecosystem, or you can go and use Java, which is actually a paid thing.
I was using MATLAB. I really didn't like the fact that when I wrote code and I wanted to share that code with others, I was essentially telling people they had to go buy a license for a software package before they could even look at my code or use my code.
You know, these are the days where you have to like buy the developer tools or spend a couple $100 to get Visual Studio 6.0 and then Python, and then all of these libraries were open source and then could be used in a commercial project.
I was sort of early on convinced by community members that Python being open source and the particular way it was open source was very important so that people would feel comfortable using Python to make great things that they would then be able to sell.
그래서 옛날에 그런 거 있었거든요. 구글에서 기도 일할 때 구글 채용 지원 사이트 가면 자신이 한 일 중에 대표적인 걸 적을 수 있는데 예시가 크리에이터 오브 파이썬 이렇게 써있거든요. 이런 거 적어야 되는 거야?
지금 보니까 이건 어워드구나. 귀도반 로썸이 구글에 먼저 있었고요. 2013년에 드롭박스로 갔었네요. 그러다가 2020년에 마이크로소프트로 옮겼었고 지금은 그만둔 것 같아요. 아닌가?
마이크로소프트에서 은퇴했을걸요?
커런트리 홀드라고는 되어 있네. 디스팅기시드 엔지니어.
맞아요.
돌아와서 MS로 갔.
은퇴해서 다시.
그렇군요. 네.
Published on the internet. The software was free and then you could buy some things around it. We were restricted to use open source, so you didn't have a lot of options. We were doing a call on our website like, what is the most popular scripting language that we should add in Blender? Perl was really big, and Python was upcoming, and there were some others. And it was interesting to see that everybody who was advising us to use Perl as scripting language, that they only advertised how great Perl is. And the people who came more from the Python background, who said, well, I think Python is the better choice, they came with a balanced opinion. They said, okay, Perl will give you this and this and this, and Python will give you other things. And balancing all of it, I would recommend you to do Python. And only for that reason, I picked Python. Just because the people were nicer.
저건 트루죠. 저건 팩트입니다.
펄은 왜 안 친절해요?
그것까지는 모르겠는데 파이썬은 새로 오는 사람들한테 진짜 되게 다 열려 있어요. 되게 포용적이고 그래서 이렇게 많은 데서 파이썬 쓰게 된 원동력 중에 하나가 이제 그런 거라고 다들 뭐 저뿐만 아니고 다들 그렇게 얘기하거든요.
근데 그게 언어가 다르기 때문에 생기는 힘일까요? 아니면 그냥 파이썬 커뮤니티가 그렇게 전통을 가지고 있는 걸까요?
뭐 어떤 게 먼저인지 모르겠는데 두 가지 측면 다 있는 것 같고 근데 제가 그냥 추측해 보기로는 파이썬도 마이너잖아요. 되게 마이너고 그러면 다른 소수 뭐라고 해야 되나 예를 들면 이런 게 있죠. 예를 들어 뭐 판다스 같은 경우에도 판다스 만든 사람이 CS 전공한 사람도 아니고 원래 퀀트로 일하다가 자기가 힘들어서 뭔가 도구를 만들어야겠다 싶어서 CS 전공한 친구 찾아가서 내가 이런 거 해볼 건데 뭐 어떤 걸 배우면 되겠냐라고 했는데 그 친구는 사실 약간 한 반쯤 귀찮아하면서 파이썬이 쉬우니까 파이썬으로 해봐 이렇게 하고 간 거예요. 근데 파이썬을 배우면서 모르니까 사람들한테 물어볼 거 아니에요. 가서 물어보면 파이썬 쪽에 있는 사람들은 내가 뭐 그런 금융 쪽 도메인 아무것도 모르지만 파이썬을 조금 아니까 도와줄게 하면서 이제 그 금융 쪽에 어떤 패키지들이 만들어지고 그 뭐 천문학 쪽에서 많이 쓰는 패키지들도 약간 그런 식으로 돼요. 파스칼이나 포트란 같은 걸로 만들었던 거를 이제 너무 이제 그 옛날 언어니까 최신의 언어로 바꿔야겠다고 생각하고 찾아보다가 여기저기 이제 가보겠죠. 뭐 C++도 하고 하다가 근데 파이썬 쪽은 이제 그런 사람들 오면은 이걸 되게 다 좀 뭐라고 해야 돼? 되게 포용적으로 이렇게 도와주거든요. 그러다 보니까 이렇게 된 게 아닐까 생각합니다.
It was honestly just a lot of enthusiasts. It was a lot of people who just enjoyed the language, enjoyed the people involved with the language, and it would just happen to be typically motivating enough for people to want to help out.
Ultimately, there's a sense of fun that comes across, and Guido coded that into the name of the
컴포더 랭귀지 스테이프 커뮤니티라고. 파이썬이라는 언어 때문에 이제 왔는데 커뮤니티가 너무 좋아서 이제 여기 머물게 됐다라고. 한 10년쯤 전에 어떤 키노트에서 그렇게 얘기를 하신 적이 있어요.
language influenced by Monty Python.
It creates a sense of community to have your little jokes. Tim Peters is a famous early example in blending both like the aesthetics of Python and humor.
Tim Peters was this mythical creature in the world of Python, and no one had met him.
He was out there in the ether as a wise one to give us advice on what to do with numerical processing.
분 아닌가요?
누구요?
제명된 분.
제명이요?
네, 아닌가? 제가 잘못 알고 있는.
최근에요?
최근에 누구 한 명 제명시켰잖아요.
네, 알고는 있는데 이름은 잘 모르겠어요.
네, 정확하지 않으니까 넘어가시죠. 네.
Steve Majeski sent me some email telling me about Python. So I started a email correspondence with Guido about the language and about the design, and I got some of the pre-release code and played with it and talked to him about design decisions and liked it very much.
Tim Peters was a Python contributor and community member and mentor to me from very early on.
Tim was a channeler of Guido. He had a really unique way of saying, I think Guido's going to like this, or I don't think Guido's going to like that.
There's a poem called Design of Python, which is a partially humorous, partially serious poem about the aesthetics of Python.
I'm actually looking at the Usenet post where Tim posted his first version of the Zen of Python, although he called it the way of Python. And it was in response to some discussion where people were complaining that they didn't understand what was Python's philosophy. They couldn't figure me out. And Tim had figured me out, and he put it basically in poetry. Here is The Way of Python by Tim Peters from 1999. Beautiful is better than ugly. Duh.
Explicit is better than implicit.
Simple is better than complex.
Complex is better than complicated. I love that distinction.
Flat is better than nested.
Sparse is better than dense.
Readability counts. I will say it counts for a lot.
Special cases aren't special enough to break the rules.
Although practicality beats purity.
Errors should never pass silently
unless explicitly silenced.
In the face of ambiguity, refuse the temptation to guess.
I did not follow that in a very key piece of NumPy, and it's still a mess.
There should be one, and preferably only one, obvious way to do it.
That's a direct reference to Perl's motto of there's more than one way to do it, by the way.
Although that may not be obvious at first, unless you're Dutch.
Now is better than never.
Although never is often better than right now.
If the implementation is hard to explain, it's a bad idea.
That's a really good one.
If the implementation is easy to explain,
it may be a good idea.
Namespaces are one honking great idea.
Let's do more of those.
This is so Tim.
Normally import this, import some useful library, which is very serious business. Having an import this that was just a joke was a bit of lightness that we like to add.
This is from a small hobbyist community, right? Because if you're a corporate behemoth making a programming language, like someone's probably going to tell you that you can't put a silly poem in your programming language. But Python is just made by dogs on the internet, so they can put poems in their software.
The different ways to make money on the internet are just beginning to emerge. Entrepreneurs are putting their faith in a new medium to deliver the big payoff.
It's the dot-com bubble, all this money pumping into Silicon Valley software and internet stuff.
Early 2000, I decided to leave CNRI and with a few co-workers, joined a little startup named BeOpen.
While CNRI, I think, was an amazing home for Python in the early days, everything changes and everything evolves. And thinking, well, if we're going to strike out on our own, this is probably the right time to do that.
That didn't work out. I'd say within maybe a year or something.
BeOpen was completely incompetent.
We spent the summer in blissful ignorance working full-time on Python. We built and released Python 2, and within 5 months, it was over.
We were paid our salaries every 2 weeks, and then suddenly in late October, we weren't.
It was a moment where the shit could have hit the fan. If all the Python guys went their separate ways, Python wasn't big enough to survive that at the time. That was when I had a company, Digital Creations, that later became Zope, which is an application server, database server, index server, web server, etc. Very large-scale, commercial quality application written in Python. And if Python died, you know who else would die? We'd die.
The whole platform was built on Python, so they were Python experts.
We need to go and make sure that Python is secure for the future, and that the team stays together.
So we negotiated an agreement with them to join my company.
That was an incredibly lucky rescue.
We felt like we really trusted them and we believed in what they were doing and what they wanted to do with Python and for Python.
This is a place that I'm proud of.
In hindsight, it was a really critical point in Python's life. I think if we had chosen wrong or tried to say, oh, well, we'll just strike out on our own anyway, you never know. But I'm not so sure that Python would have survived that juncture in its life. Yeah.
그 방금 나온 조프라는 회사가 네. 파이썬 관련해서 뭐 툴도 만들고 막 그랬던 회사 아닌가요?
저도 저 이름만 익숙한데 네. 회사가 있었는지는 지금 봤고 그 웹 프레임워크 같은 거 아니었나요?
웹 프레임워크 맞아. 그렇죠? 네. 네. 뭔가 도구가 있었던 것 같아서.
Python just kept sort of growing and the community kept self-organizing.
One of the, I think, underlying themes of Python, if you take it in its totality, is this sense of grassroots movements. Things grow from the bottom up and evolve to the point where everybody sort of realizes, oh, we need a little bit more structure.
Oh, the Python Software Foundation. In my opinion, the PSF, that damn thing was a success from day one. That came out of one of the concerns we had with BOpen, actually. So CNRI had written a license for Python and put its name on it. And BOpen had copied a version of that license and put the BOpen name on it. There was a concern that at some point I might accidentally end up working for a company that tried to grab ownership of Python.
We realized that we really need an organization that will be independent, will not be beholden to any company and their whims and their lawyers, and will really keep Python users as their first and foremost customer, so to speak, in mind.
And then the magic happened when we got into PyCon, which is maybe the third stool of the miracle of Python.
What has been your takeaway from PyCon US this year?
It feels like people are still willing to go do hard things, work on things together, you know?
Yeah. They still do have the passion, to be honest.
So what was it for you?
For me, most definitely like meeting people I haven't met in a while.
That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and just pretty much hanging out with them.
You try to walk.
Yeah.
So the other side, there's like 10 people that you want to see in between. Like, stop, I want to talk to you.
Oh, I know.
Pablo and Yuri presented as bananas.
Yeah.
And then Lukasz asked a question dressed as a banana. And then Guido came in dressed as a banana as well.
Thank you for what you do for the PSF. Please, don't step down, just keep doing it forever. Raise your hand if you love the web. Raise your hand, yeah. Raise your hand if you have done React front ends. Raise your hand if you would like to come back. No, come back to Python. All right, good. For the record, 100%.
I begged my mother to take me to PyCon, and I met all my online heroes. He was this distant, benevolent dictator for life who I'd been talking to over the internet, but here he was in person, and so I was thrilled to be able to.
사진을 안 찍어주기로 유명합니다.
아 그래요?
네.
왜요?
뭐 모르겠고
너무 많이 찍어달라고 해서?
뭐 그런 것도 있고 약간 별로 안 그런 거 좀 안 좋아하는 것 같아요.
근데 진짜 기도 정도면 컨퍼런스 가면 뭐 아무것도 못 하고 사진만 찍고
그럴 수도 있죠.
포토존처럼 계속 사진만 찍을 것 같긴 해요.
저도 같이 찍은 사진 한 장도 없는데 찍어준 적은 여러 번 있거든요. 근데 찍어줄 때마다 굉장히 좀 민망했던 기억이 있네요. 저 보니까.
근데 저 시대에는 찍어준 거 아닐까요?
저 때는
점점 파이썬 커뮤니티가 커지면서 언젠가부터는 그냥
이게 영상 뒤쪽에 조금 나오긴 하는데 이제 누군가 사진 찍어줬을 때 자기는 이제 사진 찍는 걸 싫어한다. 이제 원한다면 어두운 골목길에서 만나면 요청해라. 그럼 찍어줄 수도 있다. 네, 저 사진이 좀 어두운 그쪽에 있어서 찍어준 거 아닌가 싶긴 합니다.
Finally meet him. Then I think everyone was aware that he was a 15-year-old kid on the other end of that terminal.
When PyCon was held in Montreal, the organizer asked me if I'd be willing to give an opening address to the conference.
그때 제가 처음 간 파이콘 이거예요.
Well, I'm a slightly fast talker, and I had some spare time, and I just use it as an opportunity to say thank you.
I like to think of it as I came for the language, but I stayed for the community. So I want to personally thank all of you for making this such a wonderful place to be and such a wonderful group of people to be around. So thank you.
Luckily, it came off well because people still quote it. I think it kind of speaks to the core ethos of Python. We try to develop this tool that people can use for their needs to get their work done. But the community is the true strength of Python. It's not just the language, right? It's the people.
It was steadily growing every single year. It was getting more and more downloads, more and more people making use of it.
It became a more sophisticated language that was fit the purpose for this new emerging programming paradigm where the web itself is the platform.
He told me an interesting number that made me realize that the Python user community was already much bigger than I had estimated. Because he said, Guido, you don't know the sales numbers for Python books, but I am Tim O'Reilly. I published the 2 most important ones, and I do know the sales numbers, and they are fantastic. I don't know if he had that much enthusiasm in his voice then, but he was sharing this new to me important fact, which made me realize, oh my gosh.
Python tends to get spikes when certain specialties, I guess you could say, pick the language up and decide that this is a thing that they want to use in their area.
Everybody wanted to do things with the World Wide Web, and Python actually became a really powerful platform for doing not just web pages, but web servers and services.
And suddenly we had an increase of people coming in from the web world.
제가 요 시점부터 배운 것 같습니다.
이때 장고 얘기 나오죠.
네, 장고 0.96을 제가 배우기 시작하면서
0.96
파이썬을 같이 배웠거든요. 사실 장고를 위해서 파이썬을 배운 건데 제가 이제 이쯤부터 배웠던 것 같아요.
I think Dropbox was one of the early companies to start building in Python and reaching millions of users.
My name's Drew, and I'll be showing you a quick tour of Dropbox, which is a new way to store and share files online.
Python had been largely viewed as scripting language you run on a backend or maybe in an academic setting or in a scientific setting, but not really for like production desktop software that you'd ship to millions of people. But I just started writing in Python and hoping that none of the roadblocks would completely blow me up.
You can develop programs much faster in Python because it's a higher level language and it's a very clean, easy language. And so we could be a lot more competitive than other companies who were writing with Java or C++ or Perl.
Even back then we were competing against the Googles and Microsofts of the world, and our odds didn't seem very good, so we needed all the help we can get.
Google had this big team, like 100 people, C++ programmers, trying to do a video hosting site. And they could never keep up with this little thing over there called YouTube. And they went and looked, and it was just a couple of people writing Python.
Python ended up being a big force multiplier on our effort, and no other language that we considered had anything close to that kind of capability.
The fact that data science suddenly became a thing that you had to do, combined with the fact that Python was sort of well-positioned to do data science stuff, meant a huge amount of new Python users flowed in.
저쯤부터 파이콘 한국이 아닌가요?
파이콘 한국은 14년.
네,
14년에 시작했죠.
저 뒤에부터.
직후부터.
그렇죠. 그 한 2-3년 차 때부터는 데이터 관련 톡도 많아지고 그랬던 것 같아요.
그렇죠.
What was starting to happen in the 2009-2010 timeframe, we were seeing more and more of our consulting deals tied to using Python not as really a replacement for MATLAB or engineering type things, but using Python for doing data processing. We didn't call it data science at the time, but it was that kind of work, right? It was modeling predictive analytics, things like that.
This is the time of Hadoop, the time of big data, the time of Spark, and people were doing Java at scale.
We were starting to do much more consulting work in the financial industry. And we'd walk into these large, very well-capitalized firms, and they were using Python to do business data processing. I realized, okay, if it's a research group over here doing some science research, and they don't have money and they use an open source thing, I get it. But if you have JP Morgan, right, which has a lot of money, and they're picking up and using these scientific tools, and they're loving it, I realized that we didn't just have a cheap, free alternative. We actually had something that was innovative, and that was doing something fairly unique.
Peter and I ended up leaving and starting another company. We started as Continuum Analytics, actually, and its vision was to scale NumPy and Pandas to large data sets and large clusters.
We quickly ran into a simple problem.
Very quickly in.
But a very annoying problem.
Yes.
People just couldn't even install the software needed to run all this Python stuff. The thing about the Python scientific and data stack is that all of these different libraries
they're very different than the web development libraries because these data libraries are often backed by a very large amount of complex C++, Fortran, other kinds of software modules. And to build those correctly takes some work. To build them correctly on every operating system takes even more work. And then to build them so that they can actually be connected together, that requires you to have this entire build system rationalized.
And so the very first thing we did was like make a distribution of Python to make it easy to get that installed.
A lot of the data science Python people, they didn't even use normal Python, they used this Anaconda Python distribution.
Sort of a dumb joke that I came up with at one point. It was basically Python for big data, so it's a big snake, so Anaconda. After like a few years, we kept going to conferences and going to places, and people wouldn't know who we were. But the instant that we mentioned that we make Anaconda, we kept going to conferences.
오른쪽 끝에 저분도 2016년 파이콘 코리아 키노트 스피커 중에 한 명이죠.
밑에 자막에 가려서 같이 써 있네요. 맥키니.
웨스 맥키니. 네, 웨스 맥키니.
Conferences and going to places, and people wouldn't know who we were. But the instant that we mentioned that we make Anaconda, they would say, "Oh yeah, of course, I love Anaconda. I use it all the time, right?" So after that happened, like the 1,000th time, we said, "Okay, maybe we should rename the company Anaconda."
Data engineering became a discipline where Python was incredibly entrenched.
It was Python and R, and over time, Python's data analysis libraries caught up, and plotting libraries and stuff started to catch up to what R had. And then people realized, oh, well, with Python, I can work end-to-end with my data versus R being very good at data analysis, but not necessarily like the data collection stage and various other stages.
요즘도 알 쓰나? 좀 약간 거의 잊혀졌다가 지금 생각났네.
지금은 파이썬을 더 많이 쓰지 않을까요?
최근엔 별로 못 들어본
그쵸,
거
네.
같아요, R은.
네, 저도 예전에 이제 한창 배우기 시작하는 2019년, 20년 이때쯤에는 R도 되게 많은 영상들이 있었고 책이 있었는데 요즘은 좀 잘 안 보이는 것 같긴 합니다.
I remember going to a Python conference at one point and I was like, there's so many sciencey people here. Like, where are all the web developers? This is all data pipelines and stuff.
I don't want to be modest about this because it was a collective effort for the whole community. But I think that what we did at Anaconda, not only making the software installer that made it one click for people to just run, but also shepherding the conferences and building a community and whatnot was really critical.
They were incredibly important contributions.
I think we actually made Python super popular. I think we did.
저 똑같은 거를 파이콘 한국에서도 비슷하게 좀 느꼈던 것 같아요. 어느 순간
때문에.
네, 이거 프로그래밍 언어 컨퍼런스라고 저는 그렇게만 생각하고 왔는데 뭔가 세션이나 참가자 분위기나 이게 뭔가 절반이 다른 사람들이구나 이런. 그러니까 언어 자체는 큰 관심보다는 그런 쪽에 데이터 이런 거 그런.
그래서 저 때 이제 컨퍼런스가 2개 정도 나뉘었던 것 같은데 방금 나왔던 파이데이터도 있고 파이데이터도 자기네들 그 컨퍼런스처럼 하거든요. 그렇게 나눠지기도 했고 그다음에 좀 더 이제 과학 쪽으로 가면은 사이파이 그런 컨퍼런스도 따로 있었어요. 그래서 좀 이렇게 분리를 많이 했던 것 같고 근데 뭐 그 정도로 그 개발자나 뭐 이런 풀이 크지 않은 나라에서는 뭐 분리 안 하고 그냥 파이콘에서 다 하는 것 같기도 했고.
Well, I remember hearing from a friend of mine that Guido van Rossum was just working at Google. And that, when I thought about it, I'm like, wait, yeah, Guido, I guess, works at a normal company, and I can't remember the exact circumstances, but I think either I got an introduction to him, or I think maybe just sent him an email saying, hey, big fan of your work. You know, it's like fan mail, basically. And he responded, and we got lunch. I mean, he's a hero of mine, and he was totally friendly and approachable.
And at that talk, it was revealed that Dropbox was entirely written in Python, both the client and the server. And that was exciting.
He was interested in what we were doing with Python, and I think we were stretching the language and the runtime in interesting ways.
He approached me again and said, hey, we would really like you to work for us.
And then to my surprise and delight, he ended up joining the Dropbox team, which was super exciting for all of us.
I stayed there for 7 years. We did more important stuff for Python than I did during 7 years at Google, I think.
I think he had a big impact on the rest of the team. You know, here's someone who's one of the icons of computing, but you would never know it just from his, you know, how he badges into the office every day. And I think set a really great example in terms of being super humble and curious and friendly. You know, it's hard for me to think of someone who has had more impact with lower ego.
Let's start with the first Python license plate. Sorry. That was my car when I lived in Virginia. And there was a box on the
미국은 저런 거 부럽더라고요.
그렇죠.
그 파이콘
just grabbing the other one too.
친구들 중에
Do you want custom license plate? So I managed to get Python in Virginia, and in California, Python was long taken.
그럴 수 있죠.
Like someone in Silicon Valley probably has a Python license plate somewhere. So the best I could get was Py3K, which I thought was pretty cute anyway.
가운데 종료 좀 해주지. 아무리 내자라도 저걸 왼쪽에 저렇게 해서.
파이썬 3.0이 처음에 파이썬 3K였군요.
네.
파이썬 3000이라는 건 얼핏 기억이 나는 것 같아요.
맞아요. 저도 이제 막 기억나네요.
왜 3000이라고 불렀지? 아, PEP 3000이라서 그런가?
그거는 PEP 번호를 저렇게 지정한 거 아닐까요?
PEP가 저때까지 3000까지 안 갔을 것 같은데. 네.
그러니까 저렇게 지정을 했을 거예요. 저 파이썬 3000 맞춰가지고.
저때 아마 2000년을 지난 지 얼마 안 돼서 2K
그럴 수도 있고.
그럴 수도 있죠.
3K가 나오죠.
참 많은 일이 있었죠. 3.0.
And people started thinking about flaws in the language.
There were a lot of ideas floating around the core development community, changes you could make to the language that people thought would be major improvements. The only problem with them was that they would break old Python code that currently existed.
Some of that probably got away from us a little bit in hindsight.
We released Python 3.0 in December of 2007. I remember because I was actually interning under Guido at the time. We were giving people roughly 5 years, I think, to do the transition.
And everyone thought that was just extraordinarily generous. The world would totally be on Python 3 in just a few years.
This is best for the language long term. We're going to make these changes. The community's always.
한 10년은 걸린 것 같은데.
저는 그래서 되게 궁금했던 게 저는 처음 파이썬을 접한 게 3.6이었거든요. 2019년도 이제 그때쯤. 그래서 저거를 사실 못 경험해 본 사람으로서 이 자막 작업을 하면서도 사실 이해하지 못했었거든요. 5년 정도면 충분히 긴 시간 아니었을까. 네.
그러니까
실제로는 어떠셨어요?
빨리 넘어갔다는 충분히 긴 시간.
그러니까 5년이라는 시간이 저기서는 이제 생각보다 짧았다고 얘기하는데 이제 저는 5년 정도면 충분히 긴 시간 아닌가. 이제 요즘에 뭐 나오는 OS나 이런 것들도 이제 운영 기간을 한 5년 정도 잡고 좀 더 길게 잡으면 10년까지도 잡긴 한데 이제 대체적으로 한 5년 정도니까 그렇게 생각하면 괜찮은 시간 아니었나라는 생각을 했었거든요.
5년밖에 안 걸렸어요? 10년 된 것 같은데.
아, 네. 이제 여기서는 더 오래 걸렸다고 하는데 여기 사람들도 처음에는 이제 5년으로 생각했던
근데 넘어가는 분위기로 바뀐 지는 한 5년 걸린 것 같기도 하고요. 저도 나오고 나서도 한참 동안은 파이콘 가도 아직 아닙니다. 투 쓰세요. 제가 다 라이브러리 만들어놨습니다. 투 쓰세요. 이 얘기가 대부분이었던 것 같는데 그냥 이제는 쓰린다. 이제 쓰리 된다라는 게 느낌에는 한 10년까지는 아니었던 거. 10년이면 아주 최근이어야 되는데 3에 됐으니까.
제 기억에는 이게 5년 줄게 철저히 바꿔라고 하면 안 바꾸잖아요, 사람들이.
네.
그러니까 5년이 끝나는 무렵부터 막 사람들이 이제 몸이 다른 거예요. 그래서 막 만들기 시작하고 호환성 체크하고 뭐 호환 그런 테이블 같은 거 만들어가지고 얘는 뭐 2만 되고 얘는 3도 되고 뭐 이런 어떤 표를 다 만들어가지고 공유하기 시작하고 그러면서 이제 장고 같은 메이저 라이브러리들이 그때 이미 메이저로 성장을 해 있었는데 판다스나 이런 애들이 와야 되잖아요. 그러니까 얘네들도 이제 발등에 불이 떨어지니까 열심히 포팅을 하기 시작하고 223라는 라이브러리라고 해야 되나? 유틸리티가 나오면서 그 유틸리티의 도움도 좀 받고 뭐 이러면서 이제 억지로 이제 5년 끝나갈 무렵부터는 억지로 이제 하기 시작하고 그래서 한 2-3년 더 걸렸던 것 같아요. 다 넘어오기까지.
그 시점에도 아마 제가 확실하게 기억하는 건 아마존이랑 애플이 계속 2만 고집했어요. 람다에서도 파이썬 3 런타임 지원 안 하고 그리고 애플도 그 기본 파이썬 계속 2점대로 계속 유지했던.
맞아요.
네.
이제 아마 저분들이 당황하셨던 거는 5년을 주면 차근차근 걸려서 5년일 줄 알았는데 커뮤니티나 그런 반응이 싫은데? 투 좋은데? 뭐 이런 식으로 남아 있으니까 아마 되게 힘들지 않았을까. 생각과 다르게
엄청 힘들었겠다.
물론 저는 파이썬 개발자는 알고 파이썬 많이 하지 않았지만 저희 같이 일할 때 처음 2점 몇 대 파이썬을 제가 2015년, 16년 처음 딱 했을 때 맨 위에 유니코드라고 적어줘야 된다는 거 보고 깜짝 놀랐거든요. 지금 2015년인데요? 아니 이게 뭔 소리야? 처음에 코드를 짰는데 코드가 안 돌아가는 거. 이게 안 되는 거예요. 이거 왜 안 되지? 그랬더니 위에 유니코드 뭐 선언이 있잖아요. 2점대는 지금은 아니지만 그걸 보고 아니 이게 지금 무슨 시대에 내가 살고 있는 거지? 이런 생각을 했던 기억이다.
come along with this, we think they'll come along with this journey as well.
We were very naive about that, and they made us know it.
The community said, no, not worth it. Kill it, don't do it. It's not going to work. This included some very notable individuals in the community.
오스트리아면 암이 나오겠다.
So please come up and speak. Hi, my name is Amin. You might be familiar with some of the Python libraries that I wrote, and you might even maybe use some of them. The Python 2 to Python 3 transition. Initially, it happened very gradually over many years. There was the version that everybody used, and there was sort of the version on the side that I built that nobody used.
People didn't want to put in the effort because their code worked, you know? Why rewrite it?
It's very hard to mix Python 2 and 3. It's a headache.
So I just didn't move, and a lot of people didn't move. It felt there's a likelihood that it will not go anywhere.
It felt much more like a top-down decision than any of the things in the past. And that top-down decision, I think for some people felt like it was not inclusive of the real pains of people who had a long tail of use cases.
I think I severely underestimated how successful Python already was, how many people had written so much code in Python 2 that it would be hard for them to sort of put the effort into translate it to Python 3. I thought the most controversial thing by far was that we wanted to change the way Unicode was handled.
A way to say these things are strings and they're human consumable, they're words that people want to read and write, and these things are bytes. These are things that computers want to read and write.
We basically made all strings Unicode, and we made you use a new prefix B for bytes. And this was incredibly disturbing.
I was implementing a WSGI library at the time, and one of the things that you do when you implement WSGI is that you have to parse HTTP data, you have to parse cookie data. And there was always a mixture of bytes and Unicode. And it was very easy to work with on Python 2, and it was incredibly annoying to work on Python 3, at least initially.
There really wasn't a way to convert your Python 2 code to Python 3. The tools didn't exist.
I started writing blog posts about it, why I think that in the way in which Python 3 works right now, I just cannot see the move.
He was a valued community member, and at the time I was actually quite surprised that he was so viciously attacking Python 3.
I was probably even more negative on it than appropriate, but Python has such a good run and I put so much energy into it. I was part of building out web frameworks and all these libraries. I felt like, why are we ruining all of this with this move that didn't even have that many benefits?
I had not appreciated how many people already had enormous code bases or were on their way to building up enormous code bases. The payback for that was that I had to initiate the project at Dropbox.
We had a pretty long road to migrate many millions of lines of Python 2 code.
5 million lines of code in the server alone and another million for the client. That is a very large pile of code to transform. And so we had to invent ways of sort of doing it in pieces.
근데 아마 저때 옮기지 않고 새로 만든 사람들도 좀 있을 것 같아요.
그렇겠죠. 근데 저는 어떤 면에서는 전체 개발 커뮤니티에 교훈을 줬다고 생각하긴 해요. 저렇게 하면 큰일 나는구나. 루비나 뭐 이런 데서 깜짝 놀라 큰일 날 뻔했다. 야, 이러지 않았을까.
Build tool called Bazel. It's sort of a frozen version of Python 2. So here the sticker says, after re-education, enemy of the people Python denounced their bourgeois class, renounced formalist notions like Turing completeness, and began a new life as citizen Starlark. This is especially an example of Benjamin Peterson's humor.
I had the fortune or the misfortune, depending on how you see it, to be the Python 2.7 release manager for an entire decade.
We had to adjust our plans for Python 3 and for Python 2 so that there was a longer series of releases where there were both new Python 2 versions and new Python 3 versions.
What ended up happening is then the community was like maintaining 2 and 3. And that created a lot of burden. And so this is happening all during the growth of NumPy. We made it work for Python 2.
메일 중에 하나 기억나는데 파이썬 2와 3 다 호환되게 하는 파이썬 2.8이라는 걸 하겠다고 트레이드마크 써도 되냐고 왔던 메일이 기억나요.
거절하셨나요?
거절 오픈소스로 하겠다는데 거절하고 뭐고 할 저거는 없는 명분은 없는데
트레이드 마크는
그냥 그걸 쓰지 그렇죠. 그래서 이름은 쓰지 못하겠어요.
아 그렇죠.
네. 열심히 하라고 이제 응원은 해주고 이름은 쓰지 말라고.
결국은 안 나온 거죠?
그 뒤로 모르겠어요. 나왔는지 안 나왔는지 모르겠어요. 네. 그 메일
And then I think
제목이
Python
2.8이어서 깜짝
3.1, I think, or
놀랐던
3.2, we also made it work there, but it saw no adoption.
We knew it was going to take a long time. We knew it was going to be painful. But there is light at the end of the tunnel.
The community contributed stuff like lib2to3 and other migration tools came out.
Benjamin Peterson.
저거 밤 되면은 파란색, 노란색 불로 빛납니다. 파이썬 색깔로. 파이콘 US 가면은 그 도시에 뭔가 상징적인 건물이 있으면 거기를 파이썬 컬러로 채우거든요. 뭐 클리브랜드는 거기 되게 유명한 탑을 그냥 노란색, 파란색으로 막 한 것처럼. 네. 그냥 TMI 한번.
근데 저도 저 6라는 거 봤던 것 같기도 해요. 예, 저게 2 곱하기 3에서 쓰는
맞아요.
거잖아요.
아 그래서 6.
2 곱하기 3이라서.
새로운
wrote 6 that really helped that transition.
The language itself became a little more backwards compatible.
I eventually advocated to bring back the U prefix on the strings. And that actually made it easier to write unified code bases that target both Python 2 and Python 3.
There was a point in time where we made a very strong declaration: there will never be a Python 2.8, and Python 3 is the future.
저렇게 선언했는데 2.8이라는 메일이
맞아요. 근데 저게 아마 메일 받고 다음일 거예요. 저 컴포넌트 저게.
Python 3 just is a better language, and it is getting better over time. Python 2, on the other hand, is a fine language, and it will remain exactly what it is.
For a long time, there was a lot of measurement of how much Python 2 usage is there, how much Python 3 usage is there. I think it was when PyCon was in Portland. It was roughly when we started to see like 50-50.
Once 3.4 came out, it actually added some features that were interesting to people, like, oh, I want that capability. So to me, Python 3.4 was really Python 3.0. And then 3.5 was an even bigger milestone. That was the one that got widespread adoption of Python 3. And by the time Python 3.5 came out, then it was clear that Python 3 would work.
And then you started to have companies.
3.4부터 약간 파이썬 3라고 생각하는 것 같아요, 저도.
3.4에서 들어온 주요 기능이 뭐였죠?
그거까지는 다 기억 못 하겠는데요.
포맷 스트링이 3.4 정도에 들어왔던 것 같긴 한데. F 스트링.
F 스트링 더 나중 아니에요?
더 나중에 나왔나요?
네.
3.4에 근데 뭔가 그게 있었거든요. 그러니까 저기에서도 얘기하는 이게 언어로서의 어떤 매력이 느껴지는 기능들이 있어서 3.4로 많이 갔을 텐데.
글쎄요, 3.4 뭔가 기억은 안.
지금 릴리즈 노트를 보고 있는데
정확한 게 기억이 나지
뭐 대단해 보이는 겁니다.
네. 3.3에는 뭐가 있었나?
뉴 어싱크 IO가 이때 들어왔네요.
어싱크 IO가
그 이후 수많은 논란이 나왔던 그 모듈 아닌가?
근데 어싱크 IO가 3.4랑 3.5랑 또 되게 많이 달라요.
맞아요.
그러니까 여기 처음 뉴로 들어오고 이거 아르민 로아초도 이거 비판하는 걸 엄청 써했을걸요?
어싱크 IO 만든 친구가 참고로 우크라이나 살고 있어요.
아 그래요. 플레이.
Companies come out and give talks, like Instagram's talk, which I believe was also at Portland, was a big deal.
Yes, you heard it right. Instagram has been running fully on Python 3 for a few months.
The whole process took, I would say, about 9 to 10 months. And I think Instagram is the largest production deployment for Python at the time.
She gave a very good, very thorough talk explaining why they did it.
Two main things, typing and async IO.
How they did it.
We cleaned out all the libraries that are not making the migration from Python 2 to 3.
How you should do it.
Unit test.
What they had learned during the process.
We had actually some good performance gains as well after our migration.
It felt as vindication that at least there were large companies that took the time to do it right and to convert all their code to Python 3 and were able to do it successfully.
It was definitely well received. We got a lot of people saying we really wanted to migrate as well, but we weren't getting the kind of support that my team or my company was giving us. And now I can bring this back to my management, and that really gave people confidence in migrating to Python 3.
It became like a, look, Instagram can do it. Why don't you do it? Instagram's getting benefits, new features, faster code. Why don't you also want that benefit?
Projects undergo things like this, and Python learned a lot from it, and it did actually eventually end up with Python 3 being a pretty good spot again, that it was safe to use. And that safe to use sounds weird, but like where I felt like I can actually start new projects on Python 3 now, because we're back to a stable situation where you're about as productive as I felt like I was with Python 2.
Hi, Anna, nice to meet you. I really liked your talk.
But it was basically time that healed it.
When?
센트리 오래 다녔죠. 아르.
그렇죠. 아르메 센트리 오래.
최근에 그만뒀고.
그만뒀죠.
네, 최근에
약간 은퇴처럼
혼자 뭔가 계속 하시던데.
그런 느낌이었는데 센트리 꽤 초창기부터 참여했을걸요?
Python 2.7 was declared that there wouldn't be any more security fixes. It became a security concern. That was sort of the final push.
People who donated their work to do this migration in the wider Python world and community eventually got the world running on Python 3. But as I said, like it was a decade-long process, and I don't think anybody anticipated how much work it would need to move to Python 3.
I think Python's probably too big to ever go through a transition like that today. The community was maybe a little too big, but not too big.
I even still get angry messages sometimes from people who are like, my code needs Python 2.7, you need to provide it. And I tell them no.
2.7에서 하다가 3.7로 말리셨나 봐요.
I never wavered in my commitment to Python 3. It was a lesson learned for sure. For a long time, I regularly joked there would be a Python 4, but the transition would be handled much better than the transition to Python 3. I felt I owed that to the community. And now the mantra has changed to there will never be even a Python 4.
To be honest, I don't know how many people in Python even know about the whole transition, because that all ended in 2020. At least it's behind us.
깃허브 다녔나 본데요? 깃허브 후드가 깃허브 직원이에요.
Okay, so now we get in the closet. So there's the Frisbee. This is the most unique merch I've ever seen related to Python. Now here's a significant t-shirt. It says Python is for girls. I received this anonymously in the mail at Google. And to this day, I don't know exactly what the intention of the sender was. They never revealed themselves, at least not to me. And I don't know if there was an intention even. But I sort of realized at that point that there wasn't a whole lot of women in the Python community. And the community also discovered that and fixed it for the Python conference.
This idea of being a place where people from a wide range of backgrounds can learn how to program, benefit from programming, find community. There really was some snowballing adoption of these ideas across languages at the time.
Jessica McKellar looks at the speakers of PyCon and says, there's only 3% that are women. What can we do about this? She was co-organizer of the biggest Python meetup in the world in Boston. She knew what she was talking about.
It's not rocket science. It's like, ask people if they're interested in speaking. And we just, providing like a little bit of support drove a huge shift in the volume and demographics of the talks that were submitted.
And then 3 years later, like 35% of the speakers are women.
I forget what the number was, but I think it was almost even with male speakers.
PyCon. I had an old tweet about this, so I just pulled this up. It says, hello from your PyCon diversity chair. So the percentage of PyCon talks by women, 2011 it was 1%, 2012 it was 7%, 2013 15%, 2014 and 2015 33%, and in 2016 40%.
Problems have solutions.
That was a very inspiring story to me also.
Something that was less inspiring to me was that at the language summit, there wasn't a single woman in the room. And I don't believe we have a single female committer to core Python.
There wasn't ever ill intent, but unfortunately we fell into the trap of not doing enough diversity reach out to try to get more people to come in. To be honest, it was a lot of white men. So Guido wanted to change that.
I want at least 2 female core Python devs in the next year, and I will try to train them myself if that's what it takes. So come talk to me.
I believe one of the first people who took up that call was Marietta.
이게 누구예요? 그 여성 아마 처음인지 모르겠는데 코어 개발자.
Even though I've always been passionate about technology and programming, I also felt it wasn't a welcoming environment for women. My schoolmates who took computer science are mostly men. Most of the professors were men. And at work, most of my coworkers were men. And I just didn't really have examples or role models of women being successful in tech industry. One of my coworkers went to PyCon. He saw that at that conference, there is this community called PyLadies. And I felt like I want to meet them.
저게 그런 영향일까요? 이렇게 다른 언어에 보다 저 파이레디스,
So in 2015, that's when I decided I want to go.
커뮤니티가 파이썬에 유독 더 많지 않나 싶은 생각이 문득 드네요. 네, 딴 데도 있긴 있는데 뭔가
뭐 루비걸스도 있고.
네,
네.
있긴 있는데
파이레디스가 아까 그 제시카 맥켈러가 처음에 여성 연사나 이제 뭐 그런 게 되게 좀 부족하다 그래서 시작을 다이버시티 체어를 자기가 역할 맡으면서 다양성을 좀 키워보겠다고 시작을 하면서 만든 게 파이레디스고 이제 그런 게 생기면서 뭐 비슷한 게 생겼죠, 장고걸스. 그러니까 아마 좀 시작을 먼저 했으니까 더 많은 거 아닐까 뭐 그런 생각 들고요. 다른 데도 이제 비슷한 것들 많이 하니까
뭐 한 곳에서 시작하면 다른 곳에도 퍼지게 마련이죠.
그랬던 것 같고 그리고 뭐 지금 이거 보면서 드는 생각인데 그래도 귀도나 이제 다른 코어 멤버들이 저런 생각을 하고 이제 실제로 행동으로 옮긴 거가 좀 의미가 있는 것 같네요. 그냥 마냥 기다릴 수도 있잖아요, 왜? 그러니까 더
기다릴 수도 있고 내색은 안 해도 거부감이 있을 수도 있죠. 굳이 뭐 이렇게 할 수도 있는데.
그렇죠. 뭐 잘하면 남자든 여자든 오겠지 뭐 이렇게 생각했을 수도 있는데 막 되게 대놓고 이렇게 뭔가 지원하겠다라고 했던 거는 좀. 네.
그리고 저런 공개된 곳에서 저게 뭐 당연히 방향은 맞다고 생각하지만 저런 발표, 그러니까 뭐 몇 년 내에
하겠다.
2명은 됐으면 좋겠다라고 딱 선포하는 게
네.
쉽지 않다고 생각하거든요. 네. 옳은 얘기여도 근데 그런 거 보면 대단한 것 같아요.
To PyCon. At this conference, I get to see a lot of women speaking and presenting. At my previous tech conference, all speakers were men, all the keynote speakers were men, so this was really
2015년
different.
몬트리올인데 제가 저 때 가서 파이콘 보고 제일 놀랐던 게 컨퍼런스, 보통 기술 컨퍼런스 가면 여자들 별로 없잖아요. 근데 제가 저기서 뭘 보고 이상하다고 생각했냐면 여자 화장실이 줄 서 있었어요. 그래서 그걸 보고 뭔가 못 보던 거라서 뭔가 이상하다, 뭔가 낯설다 생각이 계속 했는데 보니까 여자 화장실 줄 서 있네, 기술 컨퍼런스인데. 그 생각했던 기억이 납니다.
One of the keynote speakers at that same conference was Guido van Rossum.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see you all.
I want to meet and see the creator of Python programming language.
And I will try to train them myself if that's what it takes.
I heard this speech. However, at that time, I just didn't think that it's something I could do. I wasn't even contributing to the Python community. I didn't contribute to open source at all. I just thought, I'm sure they will find women next year. The year after, I went back to PyCon US, and Guido van Rossum gave another keynote.
We still don't have 2 female core developers.
I think at that time, that something really clicked on me. Like, I realized that there's something within me that says, if nobody's doing it, I will do it. I wrote to Guido van Rossum and I asked him for help. Somehow I felt really scared. I just didn't feel like I deserved mentorship.
저거는 멘토십을 받을 자격이 없다는 것도 있겠지만 평소에 귀도가 보여주는 좀 약간 무서움? 그런 거에 대한 두려움도 있지 않았을까?
근데 벌써 뭐 2번이나 이제 그렇게 얘기를 했으니까 뭐 이거는 그냥 개인 성향이 아닐까. 약간 좀 부담스러울 수 있잖아요. 네.
근데 좀 부담스러울 수도 있지만 그래도 파이썬이나 귀도의 영향력을 생각하면 연락은 되게 많이 왔을 것 같은. 왜냐면 전 세계에서 사실 오는 거니까 왔고, 그러니까 한 통도 없고 이러진 않지 않아. 그러니까 코어 개발자가 없다지 연락이 아무도 없었다는 아니어서.
그러니까
그래서
여자라고 아무나 시켜주는 건 아닐 거잖아요. 당연히 어떤 기준을
뭐,
넘어가야.
뭐 아카데미를 만들어가지고 뭐 이렇게
그렇죠.
하진
뭐
않을
했는데
거잖아요.
막 파이썬 막 문법도 모르고 이러면 안 되니까 최소한 어쨌든 코어 개발자로서의 뭔가 기술적인 역량이 어느 수준 이상이었어야 될 텐데 뭐 그 과정을 좀 다 한 사람이 없었던가 뭐 그런 거 아닐까요?
그렇죠. 근데 기본적으로 뭐 열정도 있고
그쵸.
어느 정도 실력도 하고 준비도 있고 그러니까 모르는 건 가르쳐 주면 되지만 나머지는 해야 되니까.
이게 뭐 한 피처가 머지되려면 막 1년 이상씩 걸리는데 이 프로젝트가.
그렇죠.
근데 그거를 그냥 오늘 커밋하면 이제 다음 주에 릴리즈 될 것처럼 생각하고 오픈 소스 시작하면 안 되잖아요.
그렇죠. 저희도 오픈 소스 하지만 이제 거기서 해봤지만 그런 데서 다 떨어져 나가잖아요. 처음에는 다 열심히 하겠다고 하지만 금방 지쳐서 떨어져 나거나 아니면 개인적으로 바쁜 일 생기면
또
가는 거죠.
그렇죠,
뭐.
소홀해지고
그러니까.
그런 과정을 다 이겨낸 거 아닐까.
그런 과정이 궁금하게 하네요. 근데 채팅에서 승우님이 귀도 무섭냐고 궁금해하시네요. 저 실제로 본 적은 없어서.
저는 무서운 느낌은 없고 그냥 인상이 약간 미간이 이렇게 좀 주름지고 하니까 인상이 좀 세 보이는데 전혀 그렇진 않고요. 약간 그냥 사람을 별로 좀 안 좋아하는, 그러니까 안 좋아한다기보다 뭐라고 해야 되지? 좀 내성적인 성향인 것 같아요. 그래서 뭐 오며 가면 이제 인사해도 그 되게 얘기 자주 하는 사람들하고만 이제 길게 얘기하고 그래. 저한테는 그런 이미지입니다.
저는 약간 BDFL이라는 직함이 주는 느낌이 있는 것 같아요.
거의 자비로운이 있잖아요. 시작이.
또 이게 말은 자비롭지만 실제로는 좀 아닐 그런 것도 좀 있지 않았을까.
물론 뒤에 독재자가 있긴 하지만요.
From Guido van Rossum. So I was really hesitated to send this email to him, but in the end I realized that I want to try. Like I felt like this was a great opportunity for me. I pressed the send button. I got a reply. He was very friendly. He started sharing resources about, how to get started contributing to Python. He offered to do like video chats. It's been really helpful to have his moral support.
We had a pretty sort of deep mentorship relationship for a few years.
Maria learned the process from Guido and
멘토한테는 사진 찍어주는군요.
네, 저기 옆에 저기 여자분 캐롤 윌링이라고 저분도 파이콘 한국 키노트 한번 하셨고 2020년이었나 그랬고 주피터 만드신 분.
그분.
네, 그리고 제가 파이썬 PSF 갈 때 이제 그 노미네이트를 해주신 분이에요. 그 후보로.
이거 오른쪽은 올해 사진이네요. 2025라고 사진 밑에 써 있는데.
그러네요.
네.
마리아따랑 기도랑 올해. 뭔가 기도 되게 사진 찍기 싫어하는 표정.
약간 제자들한테는 약간 좀.
네, 저 표정 읽을 수 있을 것 같습니다.
continues to contribute more and more, very much around tooling. Like she really found her niche in terms of trying to help make our development process easier.
It was scary at first. Like I just didn't feel comfortable sharing my questions in public. I didn't want people to know that I don't know how to do certain things. Like I didn't want people to see that I'm actually not that good. But this is how it works in open source. And the community has always been kind and helped me with my questions without saying that you're stupid. Like I never felt like I was being judged.
I think it does start with Guido.
The fact that Guido was very active in bringing more voices into Python absolutely made Python better and stronger. Just the way the whole community works and what we stand for, thanks to Guido's leadership, is where I want to be. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
About 6-7 months after I started reaching out to Guido, I was recommended to become a Python core developer. It really wasn't until 4 months ago that for the first time ever, there's a woman who became a Python core developer and earned that commit privilege.
The first woman ever to join our team and has continued to be there and participate and try to help us, and always a very good advocate to try to improve our diversity.
I see. Okay. Now that I've seen the camera, what's up, kid?
My life really changed after.
라고 파이썬 많이 하시는 분들 그 코드 커버리지 하는 라이브러리 만드신 분이에요. 저분이 저글링을 맨날 하는데 제가 10년 다니면서 작년에 처음 이제 배웠습니다. 저글링 10년 동안 저분이랑 같이 저렇게 약간 이제 세션 비는 시간에 저렇게 저글링 가르쳐 주시거든요. 근데 제가 10년을 도전했는데 못했다가 작년에 성공했습니다. 네.
처음 했을 때 기분이 어땠어요?
성공했을 때요? 그때 그냥 뭐 꾸준히 하니까 되는구나. 네.
그러면 이제는 돼요? 저글링?
이제 되죠. 네. 됩니다. 한번 하고 나니까 이제 안 까먹더라고요. 자전거처럼.
내년부터 파이콘 한국 가서
가르쳐줘야죠.
다음 2035년에 성공할 사람을 위해서 이제
물려주시면 전파 한번 해보겠습니다.
한번 해볼게요. 제가 저분을 파이썬 하면서 만난 모든 인물들 중에 제가 제일 존경하는 분이에요. 인상이 일단 너무 좋으시고 사람이 너무 좋아요. 너무 좋고 되게 인자한 귀도랑 일단 분위기부터 다르지 않아요? 지금 보여지는 분위기.
봐봐.
Through that, a lot of opportunities opened up just because I'm a Python core developer.
Marietta went on to give her own set of talks about how important mentorship is.
When you don't have role models who you can relate to, you start believing that you cannot do it. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Marietta. I'm a PyLady. I run PyLadies Vancouver. I also help with the PyLadies Con. 10 years ago, I was also in this room in the PyLadies luncheon at PyCon US 2015. It was a life-changing event for me. It was at that event that I felt for the first time in my life as a developer, I felt like I belong in tech. Because I see 100 women in the room with me. I just want other women to have role models. I hope I can help inspire them and help them. These opportunities belong to you too. You're all the reason I do this, because I know there's still a lot to do, and I know together we can help each other and support each other. Okay, I think that's enough. Thank you so much, everybody.
I have been so consistently impressed by the Python community's ability to have respectful and real reflection and dialogue about how to steward itself and how to move it forward in a way that I find so inspiring and a vision of what is possible in other communities. And I mean that really sincerely.
지금 이거 보니까 저번에 방송할 때 지금 파이썬 스트리언 카운실에 있는 나동희님 와서 이런 막 얘기해 주실 때 멘토링 시스템이 있더라고요. 처음에 기여할 때 매핑해줘가지고 하고 뭐죠? 스티어링 카운실 갈 때도 누가 추천해주고 막 이런 게 막 있더라고요. 그런 게 이거 이후에 생긴 건가요? 아니면
맞아요. 그거 이후에 생긴 것 같아요. 그 여성 개발자 멘토링 하는 거가 처음 시작이었던 것 같고 그 뒤에 생긴 것 같아요.
약간 지금 보다 보니까 흐름이 아까 없으니까 기도가 그렇게 말한 것 같고 그 뒤부터는 생긴 것 같네요.
There were an ever-growing number of sort of scientific disciplines where all the code was written in Python, or a lot of it was prototyped in Python at least. And then the next step was machine learning packages, which started with TensorFlow and was later followed by PyTorch.
For a long time, Python was seen sort of as a scripting language that you would just do small things that you need to automate and not production-ready code. And so it wasn't given a ton of attention. And then now AIML has sort of changed things where it is now a business driver.
It appeals to people who are not professional programmers, but need software to do a task.
There are some other languages like R you can do some interesting stuff in, but Python is really it for AIML these days.
Python has probably like centuries of engineering time that has gone into code in the ecosystem specifically on those topics. So if you're using Python, you're able to instantly tap into those libraries.
Meta has PyTorch, which has an amazing Python API and front end people can interact with. There's also SciPy, NumPy, Numba, Pandas. There's a whole suite of really extensive tools.
Trying to build a language in a language ecosystem that is amenable to all of that is non-trivial. That actually took real design, real thought, and real ecosystem collective innovation over the course of decades.
The back end of those tools are usually C or Fortran or some other native language that's much faster, but would be difficult for someone with an AI background to program in.
And it continues to be used for all that by all the AI scientists developing models, and people training the models, people using the models.
And that brings yet another increment of growth to the Python community.
Python's a fantastic language, even if you're not a scientist. I just don't think it would have risen to the level of dramatic usage without the science first, data science and machine learning story. We had a massive impact in the world.
You know, I think one testament to the future of Python is if you prompt any of the LLMs to do code generation today, if it's front end, it's going to be JavaScript. If it's back end data analysis, it's going to be Python. That's the future. And Python is a part of that future. Lucky me that I chose that language and not a different one.
Hey, Diego.
Oh, hello, morning.
Hope you don't mind being filmed.
Okay.
Ida's following me.
Right.
Yeah, she's shooting some B-roll for the documentary, I think.
Nice. I first used Python 97 or something like that.
일본 사람이네요.
Wow,
저기
that's really early
파이콘
days.
아시아 티셔츠 입고 계시네. 네, 저기 파이콘 그 아시아에서 파이콘 하는 나라들끼리 모여서 이제 파이콘 뭐 에이펙 이름으로 하다가 파이콘 아시아로 이름 바꿨거든요.
아 그래요?
네, 그 티셔츠를 입고 계시네요.
우리나라에서도 에이펙 한번 했잖아요.
16년에
네,
2016년에.
So it's got 30 frames of animation.
Oh, wow.
I told everyone that he would hate getting the DSA, but they did it anyway.
Yeah, sorry, the DSA?
Distinguished Service Award. I labeled him in the annual report as like the community ones, and he made me take it out.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, he was on the steering council for 5 years. And he was a leader.
I got a job from a Python conference back in
이
2017.
친구가 파이콘 코리아 되게 자주 왔는데. 마노
오른쪽에 계신 분이?
예, 예. 마노 아시나?
잘 모르겠어요.
네.
I grew up in India. I moved to Germany, changed my life. So I think like Python changed a lot of things for me, and I just wanted to like say thanks to you for making this language like.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I take a picture of you? Or that you don't like it?
I'm so sorry. I really don't like it, and
Okay, no
especially not in busy places.
Okay, no problem. I get
Okay,
it. I get
find me in a dark alley and I'll do it.
Okay, okay. I get it.
I always kind of looked at myself as the bass player of Python, which is great. You know, you can do a lot, you can have fun, and the spotlight's not on you. And I love that. I can't imagine having that kind of spotlight on you, you know, for so many years.
I heard a story from an Apple VP of engineering that Steve Jobs had turned down their hire of Guido because he said he has his own following and we don't want to have that kind of distraction.
그래서 2.7을 그렇게 오랫동안 썼고.
Python has always been a language that changed. We've never been one of those languages that says, if you write code against this version of Python, it will run forever with any new version of the language. We just simply have never been those people.
A PEP is an acronym for Python Enhancement Proposal. That's a document that's written by someone who wants to make a significant change to Python. Basically, you're trying to convince people that this is a good idea. It would be sent for discussion to a mailing list, and then eventually Guido, as the BDFL, the benevolent dictator for life, would decide whether your change was going in or not.
But people always have worried that the next change is going to be the one that changes the feel of the language. It won't fit my brain anymore, or it won't be accessible anymore. I've actually seen people storm out of rooms saying, you're ruining this language. Some people take it very, very personally and seriously. And the Walrus operator was no different.
Yeah, so PEP 572, I don't know who coined the term the walrus operator, but if you kind of turn your head, it looks like a little walrus. It was a new feature that was proposed, but it was also a syntax change.
The Walrus operator lets you do assignments, meaning put values into variables in places that you previously could not.
That was probably the most contentious language change, oddly enough, because it's kind of a minor thing, but there was so much passionate feeling about whether that should be added or not that it created kind of a bit of a ruckus.
When I first saw the walrus operator, I didn't like it. It kind of felt a little unPythonic to me. But then I started to play with it. There was a particular use case that I came up with in my own code that I was like, oh, you know what? This is actually pretty cool. And so then I was like, well, it's something that I won't use very often, but when I need it, it's really great to have. And I turned, 180 degrees and became a fan of it. But it was very disruptive.
Language features, and especially syntax, can be a double-edged sword. So one person's succinct, elegant code can be another person's unreadable puzzle or a fustigated mess.
There were very strongly voiced predictions about how bad it would be for Python.
And then just because Python was so much more popular at the time, there are so many places where people talk about Python. I mean, Twitter, at the time.
This is all happening in public, right? And everyone can kind of, with low effort, throw their hat into the ring. And not everyone is going to restrain themselves when they're doing it.
I started being more and more convinced that PEP 572 was actually the right thing to do. I was the BDFL, and I accepted the PEP. And the next morning, I woke up, and I felt miserable because of all the attacks that had happened before. I sat down at my computer, wrote a short email, and hit send, wherein I announced that I resigned as BDFL. And that had an incredible impact, because nobody had expected I would resign, and certainly not that I would rage quit over this issue, which essentially it was.
인정하네요. 화나서 그만뒀다.
근데 원래는 인정하지 않았었죠. 이것 때문은 아니다 뭐 이렇게 얘기하지 않았나요?
그 되게 보통 상상할 수 있는 이제 높은 자리에 계신 분 물러날 때 하는 얘기 이제 그동안 오래 했고 이제 권한을 이제 물려줄 때가 됐고 뭐 옛날부터 고민한 거고 뭐 그런 얘기들을 덧붙였죠. 네.
근데 저렇게 바로 사임했었나요? 기억이 지금
거의 한 얼마 안 됐던 것 같은데요. 네.
맞아요.
Transfer of power. And now that PEP 572 is done, I don't ever want to have to fight so hard for a PEP and find that so many people despise my decisions. I would like to remove myself entirely from the decision process. I'm basically giving myself a permanent vacation from being BDFL, and you all will be on your own. I am not going to appoint a successor. So what are you all going to do? Create a democracy? Anarchy? A dictatorship? A federation? I'll still be here, but I'm trying to let you all figure something out for yourselves. I'm tired and I need a very long break. That was
내용
it.
봐도 완전 화났네요.
I thought that was pretty well written.
I like to say he mic dropped his way out. You know, he just was like, I'm out, I'm done, you guys figure it out. So it was a complete and total shock to me. Yeah.
I just felt really sad about it. I wish he would have retired under better circumstances.
I felt I needed to take a step back to sort of recover myself.
I think a lot of people really felt for Guido, you know, that he could be pushed to that point. Like, maybe we let him down to allow the vitriol over this change to Python to push, you know, somebody that we cared about to that point.
We all perceived that it was like a momentous occasion, or like a significant change that you would put a mark in your timeline in the history book in the history of Python, right? Because it had been run on the BDFL model for its entire existence. So there was a little bit of uncertainty, like, can this work at all without guidance of Guido?
It's kind of a parent saying it's time for you to grow up and figure it out on your own. I'm not going to solve this problem for you.
The first order of business was deciding on how to decide. And it turns out some people have very strong opinions on voting systems.
Programmers love arguing about voting methods.
I remember thinking, this isn't going to work. A lot of strong voices.
It's really difficult when you have hundreds of core developers and thousands of people online and millions of people in the community and probably billions of dollars of software that run on Python. You can't think about that because it definitely gets overwhelming.
I will fully admit it was stressful. I had to go to an ear, nose, and throat specialist because I actually was starting to choke on my own throat from the stress. It was not fun because if we couldn't decide on how we were going to decide, the project was done.
We really approached it like the nerdy engineers we are.
In Python classic fashion, we wrote a bunch of PEPs.
We didn't want to rush it because we knew we were going to have to live with this potentially forever.
저가 좀 독했던 기억이 납니다. 저 이제 다음에 어떻게 운영할 것인지, 거버넌스를 어떻게 할 건지.
거기에서 스티어링 카운실 방식이
있었어요.
제안됐고 그게 가장 많은 지지를 받은 거예요?
그러니까 그랬겠죠. 일단 뭐 자세히 그 뒤로는 모르겠어요. 어떤 식으로 투표했고 몇 표나 했는지 모르겠는데 저 이름으로 이제 PEP를 받았던 거는 기억이 납니다.
We also realized the world was watching and did not like the idea of not knowing whether the language was going to be around in a year or not because we couldn't stop bickering among ourselves about how to run ourselves.
People sponsored different kinds of models. I think there was one which was like, let's pick another BDFL because that's what we feel comfortable with. And then there was various kinds of committees and councils, and we ended up settling on the 5-person steering committee.
Good morning, PyCon.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for joining us. So welcome to our panel with Python Steering Council.
Because there's 5 people, you don't have the same problem of like all the stress and responsibility of making these decisions falling on one person.
I actually felt that it made sense for me to be on that first steering council, given that I was no longer feeling so burned out or attacked, to provide some amount of continuity.
You know how this goes. When your kid goes off to college, some of you may have experience with that. You're no longer directly involved in their lives, maybe, but you never stop worrying. And that's how I feel about Python at the moment. And that's why I nominated myself for the steering committee, and here I am.
There were elections for the second-year steering council, and first I nominated myself and then withdrew because there were enough other strong candidates. They didn't need me, and I was happy to sort of let go of it.
The legitimacy that came from the replacement springing up from the community is essential to it being accepted. It came from us, so it's accepted by us.
It works. I think it works for us now. There may be a time in the future where it doesn't work or pieces of it don't work. You have to be willing to evolve. Change is the one universal constant of the universe, and so things will always change, and you have to be ready and willing to adapt to change.
It started out as a hobby project, definitely. I think I probably wanted to prove something to myself more than anything. It exceeded my wildest expectations, and it actually continues to do so. I constantly hear from people whose lives were completely changed by Python. And it has created this incredible community, which was also a complete sort of bonus over everything else I had anticipated. This community that has like a massive conference every year and smaller conferences in every continent, I think, except Antarctica.
There was one of the Python conferences where there was a few thousand people in the audience. I remember just looking around and going, this is mind-blowing. That's the point at which I knew we had achieved something important, something that made a difference in people's lives and in the world.
Python turned out to be much more successful than perhaps any of us thought, except maybe Guido and his team. I think they always believed that this was the future, and of course it's now one of the most popular, if not the most popular, programming language in the world.
He spent 2 weeks in Christmas in like 1989 writing a programming language because he thought it would be fun. Like, who would have imagined that that would be such a life-altering and also world-altering thing to have done?
I think it's been great for the world. I think it's made people feel like they can get into programming when they never thought they could. I think it made programming accessible to people.
It's literally part of kindergarten through grade 12 education around the world and is on Mars thanks to being used as a scripting language to process the parachute of the Perseverance rover landing. Like, it's hard to think of anything that hasn't been touched by some Python code somewhere. It's mind-boggling.
It's an important language. It's a popular language. It's a vibrant and relevant language today as much as it was in the past, and I believe as much as it will be in the future. Programmers 30 years from now will be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm still using Python. Just like today, people are still using Fortran and C and C++, and those are old languages, you know, too, in the scheme of things. Lisp, another old language. So, yeah.
뒤에 한 20초 정도 되는 쿠키 영상이 조금 남아있긴
Now I
합니다.
keep thinking of like weird jokes. There's this library in Python called Pickles, because pickle is a funny word, I guess. The documentation used to have a footnote about how you should imagine Guido and Jim sniffing pickles.
약간 우리는 이해 못할
그죠.
개그 포인트가
서양식
약간
개그.
네.
네. 이렇게 해서 영상들 쭉 봤고요. 네, 어떠셨어요? 5번이나 보셨으니까 영근님부터 먼저.
뭐 보면서 그러니까 여러 사람들 얼굴 좀 지나갔고 그 촬영장이나 뭐 활용했던 영상들 중에 이제 파이콘 영상이 많았는데 다 가본 곳들이라 가지고 그때 생각도 나고 그리고 뭐 한편으로는 또 여기 등장 안 했지만 되게 의미 있는 사람들 뭐 그런 사람들도 좀 생각나고
네.
뭐 재밌게 봤습니다.
영근님은 이제 그 재단을 어쨌든 이사를 하셨으니까 또 그러면서 알게 되신 분들이 되게 많으신가 봐요.
그렇죠. 네. 오래 다니기도 했고요.
네네. 그래서 약간 역할을 이제 오늘의 이제 20년 넘은 이렇게 그런 경력자, 네, 좋은 말로 표현합시다. 네. 경력자와 네. 그리고 약간 최근에 파이썬을 시작하신 뉴비와 그리고 이제 중간 역할 이렇게 생각을 했었는데 사실 상관없이 다 얘기를 한 것 같긴 하네요. 평소에도 이런 다큐멘터리 자주 보세요?
저는 그 Vue.js 관련된 거 한번 본 적이 있고요. 그때 재밌게 봤고 그거 말고는 처음인 것 같아요.
미르님?
저는 아예 이제 이런 쪽 관련된 다큐는 처음 보게 됐습니다. 이거 통해서.
아싸님은 꽤 보시죠?
근데 요즘 최근에 많이 나오거든요. 예전에 막 쿠베랑 쭉 나왔을 때 한번 몰아서 봤고 근데 이런 약간 각 잡고 집중해서 봐야 되잖아요. 학습은 아니지만. 그래서 약간 지금 계속 나오는 걸 다 따라가고 있지는 못한 것 같아요. 보면 재밌는데 이제 넷플릭스 볼까 이거 볼까 해서 항상 조금 어려움을 좀.
우리가 이런 다큐멘터리에서 보면서 뭘 얻으면 좋을까요?
제가 얻었던 건 이제 그 마리아따가 나오면서 이제 자기는 이제 뭔가 기여하지 못했고 뭐 이런 얘기들을 했었잖아요. 사실 저도 그런 생각을 최근까지 했었고, 그리고 이제 기여한다고 하면 보통 개발자의 기여라고 하면 코드 기여를 이제 보통 생각을 하는데 이 영상의 번역 작업을 하면서 이런 것도 하나의 기여가 될 수 있겠구나 하는 좀 다른 시각을 좀 갖게 됐고, 좀 이런 것들을 좀 얻을 수 있지 않았나 좀 그렇게 생각하고 있습니다.
저는 글쎄 저는 이제 나이가 들어서 그런가 그냥 약간 추억 회상하는 느낌으로 보면서 뭐 저 때 뭐 아이스크림 맛있었지 뭐 그런 생각하면서 일단 봤었는데, 근데 이게 막 개발 쪽에서 교훈이라던가 이런 게 돌고 도는 것 같아요. 유행이나 이런 게. 그래서 옛날 것들도 좀 한 번 더 뎁스 있게 내려가서 살펴보면은 그 결정했던 과정이나 뭐 그런 부분들을 지금도 쓸만한 게 이제 좀 있다고 생각하는 편이어서 뭐 굳이 이런 다큐멘터리도 뭐 찾아보면서 이제 그때 했던 결정이나 이런 거에 배경을 살펴보는 것도 의미가 있겠지만 뭐 그 외에 다른 옛날 자료들도 좀 폭넓게 찾아보면은 특히나 요즘은 이제 맥락이 좀 많이 상실된 시대라고 생각하거든요. 개발 쪽에서도. 그래서 그런 걸 좀 찾아가는데 도움될 수 있지 않을까 생각을 해봤습니다.
아싸님은?
저는 제가 최근에 역사 팟캐스트를 해서 더 그런지 모르겠는데
컴퓨터 역사.
네, 이분들이 생존에 계실 때 이거를 기록으로 남긴다는 것 자체에 저는 되게, 그러니까 보통 이제 파이썬 쓰면 파이썬 기능 이런 거에 관심이 있지 사실 뭐 시간이 지날수록 무슨 일이 있었고 이런 거는 뭐 저처럼 그런 거 좋아하는 사람만 관심이 잘 모르거든요.
네.
그냥 귀도 은퇴했나 보다. 거기 앞에 뭐 와이어러스 오퍼레이터의 싸움이 있고 이런 거를 쭉 보지 않는 사람은 저는 찾기 어렵다고 생각하는데, 이런 거를 이제 그때 했던 사람들이 다 나와서 A, B, C가 있었고 막 이런 거를 딱 공인해서 찍어주는 거잖아요.
네.
다른 사람들은 추측밖에 할 수 없는데 저는 그거 자체가 되게 의미가 있는 것 같아서 사실 이 다큐 시리즈가 계속 나오는 게 되게 좋은 것 같아요. 저는. 네. 돌아가시면 더 이상 그걸 할 수가 없으니까.
저는 오늘 보면서 약간 제가 조금 지쳤어서 그런지 모르겠는데 커뮤니티에 대해서 약간 고마운 마음은 계속 있지만 내가 참여를 적극적으로 해보겠다는 마음을 살짝 내려놓은 지가 한 몇 년 되거든요. 한 2년, 3년 정도 되는 것 같아요. 근데 그런 마음을 다시 불러일으키는 역할을 했다. 오늘 보면서. 물론 이제 다른 다큐멘터리를 잘 보지는 않아서 잘 모르겠지만 그런 것도 좀 더 봐야겠네. 이런 생각도 또 들고, 네, 그렇게 생각이 들었습니다. 네, 오늘 거의 이제 영상 앞에부터 해서 한 2시간 정도 이야기를 나눠봤는데요. 처음 출연이시잖아요, 미르님은.
네.
스카이님은 몇 번 오셨었고 저희
몇 번 한
번 그때 재단 이사 하시면서
그때 한 번 왔던 거.
네네네. 오늘 어떠셨는지 소감 한 번씩 듣고 마칠까 합니다.
저는 이제 이런 자리가 처음이고 이렇게 방송 화면을 보면서 제 얼굴 보는 것도 처음이고 모든 게 처음이어서 사실 엄청 긴장을 많이 했고 지금도 손에 땀이 엄청 많이 나고 있는데 그래도 나름 사고는 치지 않았다. 그래서 되게 다행이다 라고 생각을 하고 있고 되게 좋은 경험이었습니다. 이제 영상에서만 보고 저는 이제 그때를 경험하지 않았기 때문에 디테일한 부분들은 잘 몰랐는데 그것들을 옆에서 설명해 주시면서 저게 그래서 이런 것들 좀 알 수 있게 되는 되게 좋은 자리였다 라고 생각을 하고 있습니다.
저는 여기 처음 나왔을 때는 카메라가 없었잖아요. 마이크만 있었는데 그렇죠. 카메라가 생겨가지고 좀 시선 처리 어떻게 해야 되나, 손 어떻게 해야 되나 막 그런 생각을 좀 초반에는 했다가 뭐 지금 그냥 다 놓고 그냥 편하게 하고 있는데 끝난다고 해가지고 네. 재밌게 얘기 잘 하다가 가는 것 같습니다.
네. 아싸님은 약간 파이썬을 현업에서 많이 쓰시진 않는데 파이썬 다큐멘터리 보셨을 때 괜찮으셨어요?
네. 저는 사실 뭐 파이썬은 거의 할 줄 모르고요. 그때 저희 같이 일할 때 회사만 파이썬 썼으니까 그때만 하고 다시 파이썬을 제가 쓸 일은 별로 없었던 것 같은데, 근데 저는 이렇게 전반적인 어떤 기술 분야든 좀 관심은 다 있어서 그래서 사건들은 다 알고 있고 하니까 오히려 좀 더 재밌게 봤던 것 같아요. 뭐 몰랐던 부분도 있고, 예. 오히려 그러니까 다른 다큐 뭐 자바스크립트 쪽도 요즘 많이 나오는데 그쪽은 그래도 이름 보면 다 아는 사람이 좀 많은데 이쪽은 그렇진 않거든요. 그런데도 재밌었던 것 같아요.
네, 이렇게 해서 소감까지 들어봤고요. 오늘 그렇게 많지 않으실 거라고 생각은 했는데 그래도 7명 정도 계속 같이 봐주시고 들어주셔서 감사합니다. 오늘 방송은 여기서 마치겠습니다. 들어주셔서 고맙습니다. 수고하셨습니다.
수고하셨습니다.
수고하셨습니다.